Hello everybody, my name is Jonathan. I'm an instructor here at Treehouse, and today we're going to be talking about getting started with Laravel. So I have a few slides here that I want to talk about, so let's check these out first. Today we're going to be talking about Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. More specifically, one-click development solutions such as XAMPP, MAMP, and Homebrew for Mac OS. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank some really great people that helped do some QA testing for the Laravel Basics course that was just released very recently in Treehouse. Jay Lampstack, Juan Lopez, Johan C., Kaisma, and Chizzy, thank you for helping us make this course even better. And then we're going to close this session up with Laravel Valet. It's a great way to introduce you to a much simpler way of local development. If you think that one-click solutions are a great way to go, you'll be super impressed with Laravel Valet. Okay, so that's it for the slides. So let's move on to this page. This is the landing page for Treehouse. So whenever you want to get notified or you want to use the cool calendar feature, you can go ahead and click notified. And when you do that, it takes you to the bottom and then just enter your name and email and you'll get a notification. And this is a cool feature here that you can subscribe to the calendar as well. Okay, so moving on, we're going to check out the Github repo, and there's some links here that we can, I think we've shared with you so that you can find this later. And this is basically a combination of the slides and instructions. So let's take a look. So getting started with Laravel, we already talked about these solutions, which we're going to dive into. And here's the instructions for Windows and for Composer and then Mac OS. So I'm not going to go through this exactly one by one. So let me go ahead and open the terminal. And basically I'm going to show you kind of what you need to do. So if I'm going to look at basically for Windows and Mac, if you're going to use XAMPP or MAMP, you want to check out if you have PHP installed. And you do that just by PHPV. And you can see that I have version 7.4. And I just want you to know that if you're going to be developing with Laravel, try to have 7.3 and above. So if you typed in PHP-V and you have version 7.3 and above, then you're good to go. You can install XAMPP or MAMP. So we recommend XAMPP for Windows just because we have a lot of data on Windows and Mac OS users through Treehouse. And one of the great things is that we can use that information to guide you to what platforms are the best choices. So Mac OS, you can use MAMP or Homebrew, which we'll talk about coming up. Another thing I'd like to point out is that you can use XAMPP or MAMP for both platforms. So you can use them for both Windows, Mac, and Linux. So you have a lot of choices, but we recommend XAMPP for Windows and MAMP for Mac OS. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's keep going. So let's say you don't have a newer version of PHP. Oh, something's happening here to my camera. Let's take that away. So let's imagine that you have an older version of PHP, for example. So what you can do there is go to the control panel, and here are the instructions. So we're not going to go through this basically, but right here is where that instruction starts. And go to the advanced system settings and then to the environment variables. And once there, what you're going to basically do, and this is very similar to the Mac OS steps for MAMP, you're going to basically point your PHP executable for XAMPP in that environment variable so that you can use that copy of PHP, which is going to have if you just installed it, it's going to have a newer version of PHP. And when you want to install Composer, basically you just follow you go to Composer and you download the executable and just follow the instructions. And when you want to verify you have Composer installed, all you have to do is just hit Composer and you'll see all of these Composer commands that you can check out. But that lets you know what version of Composer you have and if you have it installed. Very similar for Mac OS. Did that here. Command K will clear up the terminal. And basically, if you're in this page and you want to see where we're at, same steps for Windows. You just say phpv, and again, we already did this, but it shows that I have version 7.3 and above, which is 7.4 in this case. So I could actually install MAMP if I wanted to. I do have Composer installed, but you want to follow those steps, and I have those steps here. One thing to note for Mac, if you're going to install MAMP or XAMPP and you need to use a tool other than Homebrew, you would basically be changing the bash RC profile. So this right here. So this command, basically, if you come here, these are going to be the paths that you would actually edit. So you'd add that path, much like you did with Windows. And this process is very similar with ZSH. Instead of the bash profile, you would have the ZSHRC file, which would be the same equivalent. And again, when you're going to head over to install Composer for Mac OS, basically you want to have, once you download it, you want to make it global as well with the command here. But if you go to the install instructions or getting started instructions in the website for Get Composer, this is where I got those instructions as well, which is right here. So this is where I got the global install. And at the very top, we're going to talk about this. So let's see what we have a question here. What topics are we going to cover in this stream? So we're going to talk about getting started, basically. And so how to create a database and a user, which we can do now. Okay, so let me just make sure that I got all of this taken care of before we move forward. And we're going to talk about this database error. And I'm going to try to replicate that so that when you're trying to start Laravel, you don't get hung up on these small things. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so first off, we're going to create a database. And the way you do that is open, if you're using MAMP, okay, so we can do it from here. I'll open this page. And this will take you to phpMyAdmin. And this is where you would create your database. So in order to create a database, head over to database and type in REST API test. And we're just going to name that like that, create it, and then go back to the home page. Once you're in the home page, you want to go to user accounts and create a new user. And I'm going to use the same user. I would select local, no password, although if you are going to use this in a non-local development environment, it's important to have a password. Okay, so once you've entered all of this information, just go ahead and click Go, and that will create the user for you. And then you want to go to Database. Find the, there's the, I misspelled that, but that's the database that I created. So you're going to select that and hit Go, check all, and then Go again. And this gives the privileges to that user to the database. Great. So we're ready to go. So now what we want to do is use the Composer install. So let's check that out. In the Laravel documentation. So in the Laravel documentation, under the installation tab for version 6, which is what we'll be using, we're going to scroll down and not use the Laravel installer. We're going to use the Composer installer right here. And we're going to install the latest version and not version 6.0. But if you would like to use a different version, you can do that here. So before we, the development environment that I'm going to use, or the directory, is right here. So I'm just going to type cd space and drag the folder in there. And now I'm in that directory. It's empty. And so to create the Laravel project, I'm just going to paste the composer create project, and I'll talk a little bit about this while it is loading or installing or creating. So the create project is the command to create a project for Composer. -- prefer.dist, instead of cloning it, it's going to be downloading the distribution. And Laravel / Laravel is to install a Laravel application. And in this case, I named it blog. It's not necessarily what I was going to do, but this will work for this example. Great, so we have Laravel installed. Next, we want to open this. First, I have to see what's in there. Okay, I'm going to cd into blog, which is the newly created Laravel application. And now we can paste in the composer create command. Oops, no, we already did that. What we want to do here is open it in Visual Studio Code like this. Great. Now, let me see if my camera's still messed up. There we go. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is just go through the steps of basically checking our database credentials and entering those credentials. This is where people get sort of hung up, and I just want to make sure when you're getting started with Laravel that all of these little steps don't get in the way from you building an application. So let's go ahead and continue. First, we're going to head to the .env file, which is your environment credentials, development environment credentials. So let me go back to, it's supposed to be REST _ API, but it's not. So okay, so that is the name that I used for the database, and that is the name that I used for the user. Now, if I save this and I try to migrate it, we'll get an error. And so if you head to back to the GitHub repo, Laravel Db Error, we're going to copy this. And this is sometimes necessary for Mac OS, where you might have a database issue, and I believe it's from installing it in Homebrew, or I actually have a local development set up. So I have multiple ways of developing Laravel locally, and so this is what I use to avoid this error. Right under the database password. Save. And then you get a successful migration. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Yes, I would suggest having a good, the question is, do we need a really good foundation of PHP knowledge before starting Laravel? And that's a great question. Yes, I would suggest you have knowledge of OOP, object-oriented programming, definitely a foundation before that, before continuing. And there's going to be some other things that you might need. I would suggest taking the Laravel Basics course and all the prerequisites that come with that course before you get started. It'll be a lot easier. Okay, so let's move on and let's use Artisan to serve this project up. PHP Artisan and serve. Am I in the correct? Oh, I misspelled it. Okay, so now if I open this, excuse me, there we go. That's our Laravel application. Okay, so this is what I wanted to get started to cover today, is how to go through all of these processes and not get hung up. There are some other sort of interesting things. One of them, Jay Lampstack brought up, which is a database seeding error. And so there's things that can hang you up, and it's really, let me turn the camera back on. It can be really frustrating when you're going from PHP and then starting to work with Laravel, and you're really excited to get the project up and running, and something goes wrong. So if you have any issues where you get hung up starting a Laravel project, please let me know. And you can always reach out to me on Twitter as well at _Jonathan_codes. So that's pretty much it. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so what is Laravel? What does it do? What is it for? Great question. So let me go back to, I'm going to do a little talk about Laravel, and then we're going to close things off with Laravel Valet, which will really illustrate what Laravel does, right? So Laravel ideally or primarily saves time. So whenever you want to do something like, there's a lot of tasks that would just take you a whole weekend to do, but using Laravel, they've sort of abstract that a little bit. So having a good understanding of PHP is really important. But when you start developing, it is really, really, really fun. And sometimes it's very elegant. And so coming from PHP to Laravel, it's a really exciting time, because it goes from, you know, PHP, the way that the code looks, to Laravel. It's a kind of a upgrade, and it saves a lot of development time. So let me sort of illustrate this, right? So how does it save development time? So let me close down this server here. Okay. And I want to show you this project right here. This project is the project we're going to build in Laravel Basics, which is a clone of the Treehouse course library. It's awesome. It's not fully functional, obviously. It's just a basic Laravel application. But each page will take you to a different, or each nav tab will take you to a different page. And the library page has a little bit of the database and shows you some of these courses. So whenever we went through the whole process of using Laravel, or setting up Laravel. So I want to show you what Laravel Valet does. Let me turn this off. Okay, so if I go to my desktop, let me close this. Any of my projects in my web dev folder can be opened by Laravel Valet by just entering the name of the folder and then adding .test in the browser. So the name of my folder is Laravel Basics. .test. And so there you go. So now this is a local environment, local development environment, where if I use the back arrow, you'll go, this is a live website. So if you go to this URL, you'll see this app, but to see it locally, this is all you have to do. You don't have to enter PHP artisan migrate, or excuse me, you don't have to enter PHP artisan serve. It's really elegant. So here's another good example. This is another project that I just basically, all I did was add .test and it just served it up, and it works. So this is the API that we'll build in the second Laravel course, build the REST API with Laravel. So if we click on authors, oh, so we have a database error. Let me see why. I think it's because we have the other app running. So it's at the same time. So this is how you would use Laravel Valet. Let me go ahead and use the okay, so this one's working. I'll look into why the other one's not working. But Laravel Valet is what we're going to cover next time, and it really puts it into context that, yeah, that's a great question. Laravel Valet, is it for Mac? That is correct. It is only for Mac, unfortunately, but it is something worth noting, and I wanted to share that with everybody. So next time, we're going to talk about Laravel Valet for Mac OS. And that's it for this live stream on getting started with Laravel. I had a really good time going over this with you, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. My camera's not working, but I'll get that fixed for next time. And until next time, happy coding.